Are Donald Trump and his sons Don Jr. and Eric being haunted? Let's look into that. Welcome to Trevor's Tarot Astrology and Spirituality. First off, a huge thank you to all the new subscribers. Thank you to everybody who likes, watches, and comments on the video. The channel's just starting to grow. It's going well. If you've been promoting the channel, huge thank you. And if you've donated money to the channel, huge thank you. Okay, so I have another channel where I read more political stuff, but um, when I was scrying this morning and going into the energies of Donald Trump, it was like he was surrounded by other entities, some familiar, some not really recognizable to me, but probably to him. Similar story with Don Jr. and Eric, although there were some that I don't think are familiar to them. I think there's other things going on there. So let's just kind of throw some cards on this. Let's start with Don Jr. Can you tell us about June? Is he being haunted? And are these hauntings making them make poor decisions? Tell us about Don Jr. So, seeing emotional messages coming forward, the page cuts. The water, I'm seeing an image of a lion. It kind of looks like the lion in the strength card, but I think this is like referring to some of the big game that they've hunted in Africa. I feel like there's some energy around that that's following them. I also see his mother, Havana. Yeah, I mean, he's being kind of haunted by people all over the world. I think these are indigenous tribes whose lands they used for sport. Okay, we get the inheritance card. I think this is the card representing his mother, Ivana. I think there's something about the way she died that has kept her around all three of them. He's not quite sure how to handle it. So he's trying to defend himself, but he's not spiritually in tune with what's going on. I think this is for entertainment purposes only. It's been speculated that he has some substance abuse issues. And certainly there have been videos that suggest that. And I'm not making fun of people with substance abuse issues, but this could be part of the cause of that. Like here's the lion, right? The strength card. Um, except for he wasn't petting the lion, they were killing game in Africa, right? Big game. I think that as these hauntings have progressed through his life, and they're subtle, right? He like probably has paranoia where he feels like he's being watched all the time. He probably, sometimes smells strange odors, maybe occasionally smells his mother's perfume. I'm getting that. Um, I think they're really taking a toll. Yeah, sleepless nights, anxiety, they're really wearing on him. And I think that's why he looks much older than he actually is. Yeah, he's holding the coin tightly to his vest. He's keeping the secret. He doesn't want to talk about it because, not many people do want to talk about this if they're experiencing some sort of spirit around them. Now, most of the time, for most people, the spirits are very benevolent, passed over loved ones, things like that. But not always. It can be people that we've wronged. Now, most of the time, if you acknowledge it, they'll just go away, you know, make amends, for example, depending on the nature of how wrong you wronged them. Giving and receiving of loans and debts, or taking. I'm hearing the word taking. Like he's taken things that he wasn't supposed to take. And I think this has to do with the spirits that he doesn't know that are around him, because they feel like they're, you know, very old, and like they're protectors of the planet. There's things behind the scenes that he can't see. He doesn't understand it. He doesn't know what's going on. He can't quite equate it. So it's causing this spiral effect for him personally. And I think he's probably handling it the least well of the three. But yeah, here's the card for substance abuse, the Seven of Cups. So things that he's done to the planet is causing anxiety. Things that he's done to the planet's causing anxiety, which is leading to possibly abusing substances, or at least illusional and delusional thinking. And it's spirits that are making him, they're trying to make him aware of the damage he's done to the planet. Things that he's taken that weren't rightfully his to take is causing sleepless nights and anxiety, and leading him into this position where he always feels like he's on the defense and he doesn't know why. Like he probably wakes up feeling guilty every morning, but he doesn't know why. Like a sense of dread. And the environment around, I, I feel very confident that this is his mother, Ivana. It's the card for inheritance. There are things that he can't see around him that are affecting his daily life. I think this has to do with taking strength from others, in particular the big game hunting in Africa. I feel like that was a big mistake. Um, and he's not wanting to talk about the secret, so he's holding it very tight to his vest or close to his chest. Um, they're very scary messages running through his thoughts, a lot of internal demons going on that he just can't quite figure out what they're about, because he's not perhaps in tune, and he's probably maybe a little too proud for entertainment purposes only. He's probably a little too proud to like seek some therapy. Um, he will figure it out one day, though. The Sun card, full illumination, and the people around him. And if he doesn't figure it out, he's gonna, become, his life is gonna become less rich, not monetarily, but less rich in the things that he does, his social interactions. He'll start to reclude or become a recluse. Um, yeah, so I think he probably is the one that can't handle it as much as the Eric and perhaps Donald. But we'll read on them too. Now, Eric is pretty emotional, I think. I don't think he's emotional in public, but I always get this image that when I go into his energy, it's like Eric always feels like he's on the verge of tears. Just does. Like he's not happy with his life. He's not happy with the way things are going. Um, I don't really know why. That's just the energy that he puts off. I could be right, I could be wrong. This is a tarot reading. Um, but he has a lot of regrets about how his mother passed. Like, not sure exactly what that means. Whether he feels like he, could have been more involved in her life, or perhaps he was too involved in her life. Can you tell us about Eric? Being Yeah, it's the same image of a lion in the water. I think he too feels like he's being watched, but I think he knows why. I think he too probably gets, a smell of Ivana's perfume from time to time, and I think he knows why. I think that's the difference between the two, is that Eric knows why this is happening, and he feels guilty, versus I don't think the older son has that capability. I mean, they both were raised in an environment where emotional maturity didn't exist. So, I mean, the only one that probably provided that was their mother. He just feels overwhelmed all the time. Like it's like all too much to take. It's like the vastness of the ocean, the vastness of life. He's not quite sure how to handle it. He's juggling all of these things and he doesn't really know how to deal with it. So he's been throwing himself into work. I think recently he talked about investing into crypto and doing research into that. So I think that explains the Eight of Pentacles. He's hoping to like figure it out though. I think that's also the difference between him and the other two, is that he actually kind of wants to figure things out. Like I don't think he likes who he is. That's a pretty bold statement, but I think that's the energy I think that's why he always feels like he's on the verge of tears when I go and try to pick up on what he's going through. Just always feels like he's on the verge of tears. Yeah, he's thinking about his mother, intergenerational relationships, also thinking about his father and his father's time coming to an end. Um, Probably not in the too far distant future because he's 78, right? And, that's already past the average lifespan for a male. So, and of course, he has kids of his own too that he's probably thinking about. Hmm. The center of the reading, we get the Seven of Swords, deceit, thievery, trickery, trying to get away with something. He knows he's done something wrong, and that's also the difference between him and the other two. The other two have done the exact same thing, they just won't acknowledge that it was wrong. Versus, I think Eric knows some of the things he's done is wrong and that he tried to get away with things. He took things that weren't his. With the Ten of Pentacles, again, this is the same card we got in Don Jr.'s. I think this is his mother. It's the card for inheritance, right? So his mother's around in the circle around him. He feels like he can't get caught up. It's like as soon as he kind of puts one demon behind him, another demon pops up. It's like this constant sense of dread. And I think that also explains too why he can go from, looking very calm to completely erratic in a split second and screaming at the TV. With the Hierophant, he fears the courts. He fears, when they were on, when the Trump um, foundation was, or the family business was on trial for fraud, he feared it versus everybody else kind of mocked it. And that's why he said he was getting into crypto because, the Trump name's just not really good anymore and in a lot of ways. So, and he too wants to walk away from things. I think he kind of wants to walk away from the family. That's the sense I'm getting. I don't think that'll happen until his father's gone. So there's a lot on his plate. He feels like he's juggling just way too much, which is coming from trying to cover up all the deceit, the fraud that he's committed in the past, taking things that didn't belong to him. And he kind of wants to start a new life, but he doesn't exactly know how. And he feels like he can't keep up with the events of the day. He is always worrying about the deceit, the fraud, the trickery that he's pulled on people. And he's just wanting to get to a place of peace and harmony, but he can't. And I don't think he exactly knows why, but I think he has a better idea than the other son. So he throws himself into work that's in the environment around. He's thinking a lot about his parents, both his mother and his father, and their mortality and his mother's passing. His mother's also in the environment around. I think I think she haunts him in a lot of ways. Like I feel like he feels responsible for her passing. I'm not saying that he is, but he feels that way. And he also fears being judged, whether it's by the courts or it's by public opinion or um, by a higher entity. Yeah, we get the temperance angel. Yeah, he very much fears being judged. And he fears the truth coming out, or maybe the truth coming out would be a relief. He can't quite tell. So yeah, I think he's being haunted by the same sort of entities as Don Jr., except for I think he's handling it slightly better. Okay, so what about Donald? I think I want to use this deck. What can you tell us about Donald? Is he being haunted? There's something on the card there. Is he being haunted? I think he's for sure has a lot of demons, both real and unreal, in the sense that they live in his head. I think he always has felt like a disappointment to his father. I think that explains a lot of his behavior. I think he's always felt like he couldn't live up to his mother's expectations. And even though his sister wasn't as wealthy as him, I think he always felt that she was more successful than him and the sense of the respect that she garnered as a judge. And definitely see Ivana around. Let's see what can you take some. Yes, I could see his sister, his father, Ivana, and his mother. But there are others too, and a lot of them, like a lot. These are a lot of people that just feel like he treated them poorly, deceived them, tricked them in business. I think this is why we get the 3 a.m. tweets, the star card. He's hoping it goes away. Waking up in at odd hours is also can be a sign. Now, I get up really early in the morning, but that's by design, and I always have. But the cards just don't quite feel right. All right. What can you tell us about Donald? Is he being haunted? Karma is a real thing. If you mistreat people in this physical realm, it can come back. It doesn't always come back in this lifetime. It can come back after your life. It can come back at various points. We get the Four Cups. He feels like he can barely keep his head above water. Like he very much feels the people around him. Notice the people around him, the person there who can barely keep her head above water. Tarot knows no gender. That's him. Barely keep his head above water. Can't see all the people around. The people all around, I think, are representations of all these spirits that are haunting him in a variety of ways. I think he always feels like he's being watched. I think he's very paranoid. Um, that whole lying about the phones being wiretapped. I don't know that he knew he was lying, to be honest with you, because like a lot of this paranoia has manifested itself into these really dramatic lies. And unfortunately, they've gotten into the public consciousness, and a lot of the public are believing them. But um, yeah, he feels like he's being manipulated, like he's a puppet on the string with the puppeteer. Except for he's not the puppeteer, he's the puppet. And people are pulling the strings, and he can't control a lot of things. And, you know, as he's gotten older, this has gotten worse. Um, he can't control his sleeping habits. I don't think he can control his bodily functions either. And this is all a combination of some physical problems, but also some spiritual issues. We get the Three of Cups, uh, circles of support and celebrations, things that he thought were parties with people, things on evenings that he was having a good time, other people viewed as being abusive. That's why he doesn't think that he sexually assaulted E. Jean Carroll. He was having a good time, so therefore it can't be the case. The jury found him liable for sexual assault. He didn't think he did it. I really think he didn't think he did it. That didn't mean that he didn't do it, because he did, according to the jury. This is something that, men in particular have to work on, being more cognizant of their actions, especially if liquor's involved, even if you're not drinking. I know he doesn't drink, but um, young men in particular, need to be aware that what they say and what they do can be harmful and hurtful. Same for young women too. It just tends to go the one way more than the other. Get the King of Swords and the environment around. This is the persona that he puts up. he puts up the persona that he's this real strong individual, but really he's small on the inside. At the center of the reading, we get the Two of Wands. He's at a crossroads. I think this is just as he's approaching the end of life. He's very much at a crossroads, looking at the world, not really understanding it. Most of this crossroads things happen when we're around 40. That's when most people kind of get a grip on what's going around about them. Sometimes earlier if people are sick. Get the Queen of Wands. I think this is Ivana, very passionate. At one time, he had her on a pedestal, but not at the end. I think she feels like he's very much responsible for the way things ended for her. We get the Devil. He wants to put on this persona that he's part of this happy family with Melania and the kids. And the truth is he's just eaten up on the inside with this devil type energy. It's to the point that he doesn't even know the truth. That does not excuse it, but he doesn't know the truth. He's so full of mis and disinformation that at this point in his life, he cannot decipher reality from non-reality. And that's why these hauntings are so troubling to him, because he's not sure if they're real, if they're not real. They feel very real, but they're not in the physical realm, they're in the spiritual realm. But he can't decipher between them. This is also because the veil is getting closer as he's getting closer to departing. With the Hierophant, he too, in the same position as Eric, he too fears the courts. He won't admit it, but he fears being judged for his life, right? The Hierophant's the courts, the church, um, the government, could also be a representation of a deity. He very much fears being judged by the public, by the courts, by a higher entity. He's very much in fear of that. We get the Seven of Cups. Again, this is substance abuse for entertainment purposes only. It's been rumored that he takes a lot of Adderall, or had been taking a lot of Adderall. Um, this illusion and delusionary thinking, right? The woman's in the grocery store, yet she's seeing herself picking apples off of the tree, right? But she's in the grocery store. Again, like this separation between reality and truth, and reality and untruth, it, it's all a blur to him. He doesn't know the difference at this point. And it's partly because of all these people that are surrounding him and haunting him, but it's also part of his own making, because, you know, it's not everybody brings hauntings upon themselves, right? They don't. It can happen to anybody, but more likely than not, um, it can be because of something we did. So he can barely keep himself above water. He's surrounded by all these spirits. He's at a crossroads learning lessons in life that he should have learned years ago, but he never learned. And now he's living in this illusionary and delusionary state where he can't separate reality from fiction. He's full of mis and disinformation of his own making, but he can't decipher whether it's true or not true anymore. And the spirits around him, keep him from connecting to some sort of higher being. And again, he just never learned these lessons growing up. And this resulted in him hurting people without realizing he was doing it. Now, that does not excuse it one bit, so please don't yell at me in the comments. What it means is that he viewed a lot of these things as being mutual when they weren't, because he can't separate reality from fiction, doesn't excuse it. And the environment around, he's being played like a puppet. He's being manipulated by these spirits to do things. So the question, one of the other questions we were going to ask is, are these making him do, you know, um, things he doesn't want to do? Absolutely. Absolutely. Doing things he doesn't want to do. He puts up this persona of being a very big and strong person to the environment outside, but in reality, he's feels very insecure. He's also surrounded by Ivana, and he's very much just like Eric fears being judged by the public, by the church, by a higher deity. Underneath, he just feels apathetic. He feels isolated and alone. He wishes he were the King of Wands, the person who can speak passionately and rile up a crowd. Can't do it anymore. Um, this is making his relationship suffer, and death isn't too far away. I think this is a physical death, but it's also being in a very dark cycle, which he currently is. So, yeah, I think all three of them are being very much being haunted, and all three of them very much by Ivana. I think he probably wakes up. I think she does something to wake him up in the middle of the night, and that's why he doesn't sleep well. And that's also part of the reason why he's so erratic. Um, I don't know what she does, but there probably was something when they were married that she could do to get him out of bed to go do a chore or something, like, uh, but yeah. Anyhow, all right. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another video soon.